Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I've got something exciting for you, a brand new Tier 4 British premium tank, the Sentinel, which was made in Australia during World War II. Stay tuned, I'm going to let you know everything there is to know about the Sentinel and whether it's going to be worth picking up when it arrives in the future. And I wonder if you guys have noticed anything about this vehicle, whoever is. So let's see how the Sentinel compares to a series of other Tier 4 medium tanks that it is going to compete with. The Tier 4 British medium tank, the Matilda, the T-28, and the STVZ-39, the Czechoslovakian medium tank. So unfortunately, right off the bat, it's very bad news for the Sentinel as it has the lowest DPM of any of these vehicles. And on further inspection, comparing it to the DPMs of all the other Tier 4 tanks, unfortunately you can see the Sentinel down the bottom with the AMX-40 and the Valentine. This DPM truly is painful. It's got pretty much a third less than most other Tier 4 tanks, and 60% less than a T-28 if it chooses to use that 57mm gun. The vehicle also has very low alpha damage. If you thought the Matilda's 55 was low, you've seen nothing yet. The AC-1 Sentinel has 45 alpha damage. That means you would have to shoot the very common Tier 5 Japanese heavy tank, the OI Experimental, 16 times to be able to take his vehicle down. But thankfully the rate of fire on the gun is excellent, 26 rounds a minute. But when you compare that to the Matilda, which fires 28.57 rounds a minute but also has 10 extra alpha damage, you can see why the DPM of this tank is nearly worst in class. The shell velocity as well is rather frustrating. It's under 800 meters a second, which makes it quite hard to hit targets at long range, which you're going to see in the gameplay coming right up. The tank also has horrific aim time, 2.7 seconds. Oh, Wargaming, have you not learned what we found out about the FE4 202P? This is 0.8 seconds worse than the Matilda, 0.4 worse than the German vehicle, and God forbid 0.4 worse than the Soviet medium tank, flagging miles behind even the Czechoslovakian machine. When we compare this to the aim times of all the other medium tanks, you won't be surprised that you find the Sentinel near the bottom with T-28s that are using derp guns, Japanese tanks that are using derp guns, and a whole series of artillery. What's really awkward about this is, considering the tank has such a high rate of fire and such a low alpha damage, to have its actual reload time to be lower than its aim time. That means that you can never be as accurate as the .37 that this vehicle has, which again is not very good accuracy compared to a lot of its counterparts. The dispersion of the tank as well is not fantastic while the vehicle is moving, but at least it is wonderful when the tank is stationary and you're only turning the turret with .08, which is way better than the Matilda and all of the other vehicles as well. And so that means with the AC-1 Sentinel, if you really want to even get close to using the mediocre DPM that this tank has, then you need to be completely stationary on a ridgeline. And thankfully the vehicle does get 10 degrees of gun depression, the same as the Matilda, which is excellent and allows this tank a good deal of flexibility when it is using undulations and ridges. Fortunately as well, the Sentinel has an excellent top speed limit of 60 kilometers an hour, which is way better than the Matilda, the T-28, or the ST. It also can go quite fast backwards at 20 kilometers an hour, way better than the Matilda's 11. But unfortunately the vehicle gets 330 horsepower, considering it is not very light at all. This vehicle weighs 27 tons, the heaviest out of any of these vehicles, even heavier than a Matilda, which gives this vehicle a power to weight ratio that even heavy tanks would not want to have. And this is not made up in the ground resistances of the vehicle. The ground resistances are positively mundane also. And so what this means is that the Sentinel has very mediocre mobility unless it can get up some momentum down a slope and reach its top speed limit. Thankfully, however, the Sentinel has pretty decent frontal armor for a Tier 4 medium tank with 65mm covering it. If we look at this in some more detail, however, we can find that the 65mm is only over the lower plate, and bizarrely enough, in the center, over that crazy looking machine gun port that we talked about earlier, which is not a weak point on this tank. The parts of the armor which are thinner on the front, unlike the lower plate, are quite slanted, and so this makes them just as effective if we look at the live model here. However, just don't expect to be bouncing all day, because even if you angle this armor like this, the effective thickness only goes up to about 80. And unless you're engaging tier 3 tanks, this isn't really going to hold up against most of the vehicles that you can meet. And also, the AC-1 Sentinel does not have preferential matchmaking, so you're going to have to fight with tanks up to the size of a Cromwell. I was hoping on this vehicle that the turret armor was going to be a little bit better, but unfortunately it is 65 and there isn't really any spaced armor over the mantlet either. And you should avoid getting shot in the side because high explosive derp guns are going to pretty much one-shot you, and artillery is going to take advantage of 22mm of top armor on the hull. The tank does get a decent slab of hit points for a medium tank, 370, but when you think about it, that isn't very remarkable considering there are many tier 4 tank destroyers such as the Hetzer with their 105mm guns that will remove your health. And let's not even start to talk about the tier 5 and tier 6 Japanese heavy tanks that you seem to meet all the time while playing this vehicle. Luckily, the view range of the Sentinel is not that bad. 350 meters is very good for a tier 4 tank. And if you have a very skilled crew and coated optics, you can actually get up towards a decent view range of about 445 meters. But anyway, I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's get stuck into some Ace Tanker gameplay. So here we go, we are playing on Redshire and we are top tier, thankfully. I will be showing you how this tank deals with some higher tier tanks in some gameplay later on, so don't worry. I just wanted to give you an idea of what the Sentinel's mobility and gun handling is, and this replay certainly shows it. Yep, 9 kilometers an hour up the slope. Doesn't really feel much like a medium tank. I was even looking at my vehicle when I was playing this thinking, come on, there's got to be a little bit more grunt in the engine than this, surely. But there really isn't. But now you're going to see the other side of the coin. Now we're going down slope. What are you doing, PZ1C, rolling around in the dirt like that? There's a fight going on. Come on, get to it. So we pick up quite a lot of momentum going down the slope there. Look at the bloom on this gun. Yeah, that's what not having vertical stabilizers looks like when you've got 2.7 seconds aim time. Oh my word. It kind of upsets me every time I think about the aim time of this tank. Otherwise it would actually be probably pretty good. I guess that's a lot like what happened with the FV4202P, right guys? So there's this PZ1C on the enemy team. Fair enough. You're seeing exactly what 45 alpha damage looks like and this amount of aim time. You notice how we reload probably about half a second or so before we could possibly hope to fire another shot at the tank's maximum accuracy. And that's something that's very frustrating in this vehicle. Even when you have the whole of the side of an M3 Lee, I feel like I can't keep up with the rate of fire on this gun if I want to maintain accuracy against the Lee here. Even having the side of a Japanese tier 4 heavy, this is about as juicy as a shot will ever get on this tank at 428 meters. And you see me experimenting a little bit with, shall I try and just go full auto, or shall I try and fully aim the shot? And you can see how bad already terrible DPM gets when you weight your shots. I really don't think that this is a bit of a sniping tank, but unfortunately, you have to stay completely still if you want to maintain any kind of accuracy and low aim time. So we take a shot in the side from the Type 95. We hear our ammo rack come off, but a quick dab of the 4 key puts the ammo rack back on, and we should be able to get back into the combat. So, I just think that if I'd been in pretty much every other tier 4 medium tank, I would have secured at least a kill or maybe a couple of kills there. Really, you have to remain completely deadly still in this tank if you want to have anywhere near as much accuracy as I'm showcasing here. And remember that I'm using a very skilled crew with brothers in arms. I'm also using a premium consumable, as you can see. I have got pretty much every single skill that you would be able to get on this tank. It's maxed, so to say. So what you're seeing here is the best possible outcome that you could ever have. What you see me here doing as well is just experimenting with going full auto in this tank. Just get an idea of the gun handling. That's really what I want to showcase here. Got the side of an American T40 here. Put a few rounds into him. That one didn't go through. And the thing is that I'm quite used to tanks with good rates of fire. You know me, I love my Comet, I love my Cromwell. But you just don't seem to do any significant damage while you're putting the shots in. We hit that T28 2 times, doing 92 damage to him We're going to see more of that later on when I showcase how this tank dealt with a KV-1, or maybe even against an OI experimental. We'll see that. So from here on, really, I'm just going to fast forward because nothing more happens. I probably shouldn't fast forward just for a second. Now get an idea of just how long it takes this tank after it loses its momentum to build it up again. Look up this slope. We're down to 24, 23, 22. We're pretty much the same kind of speed as what a Matilda would be going. And this was such a frustrating aspect of the tank for me as well. That after you've had a fairly okay game like we've had here, it's just too damn hard to get to where you need to go to clean up. Or alternatively, you can get outmaneuvered by tanks that have got lower top speed limits than you, but better ground resistances and better engine power. So we're sneaking up behind this Valentine 2 here. Miss, hit, and our friend finishes him off. So an unremarkable game here really for the Sentinel. Let's take a look at the post-game stats before I show some more examples of this tank having to deal with higher tiered heavies. So yeah, we sat on a ridgeline and shot at tier 4 tanks. We get an ace tank or a Confederate. We also managed to do quite a bit of spotting here because of the nice view range on the tank that I had a nice crew on as well and coated optics. Over 500 assistance damage, 1071 regular damage. We fired 46 shots this game, 32 hits and 24 of those penetrated to get that 1000 damage. So does the Sentinel make credits? Well, let's take a look. Don't be confused, there's a bonus action here for 40,000. So this was 35,000 received by the tank, 5,000 for resupplying the ammunition and the repair of the vehicle. That's about 30,000 credits profit for doing 1,000 damage and 500 spotting in a tier 4 tank. So don't purchase this thing thinking that you're going to make decent credits, because frankly you're not. Realistically, if you want to start making decent credits from a premium tank in World of Tanks, you need to go to at least tier 5, hopefully 6 plus. So let me just show you a couple of examples of how long the Sentinel needs to keep shooting tanks to be able to kill them. But firstly, one thing that I should mention, this tank actually gets quite a nice bonus for being a premium vehicle to experience, making it quite nice for crew training or if you want to convert off and use on your other tanks. So here we go, we're going to fight a Sentinel against Godzilla, the OI experimental, that tier 5 Japanese heavy tank. How many times are we going to have to shoot him, boys? Once? Oh, he hits me for 326. We're going to have to get very close to him to avoid his gun depression. 7. 8, he misses. 9, 10, 11, 12, now he figures out that he needs to reverse himself. 13 hits. And he still had 133 hit points left. I was going to have to shoot him probably 3 to 4 more times if I wanted to take him out. That's continuous fire for pretty much 30 seconds there. This tank's DPM is just so bad that even if you ambush a tank like this and you manage to dodge one of its shots, side-hugging it where you think it's going to be weaker, you just don't have enough DPM to be able to take the beast down. So here's another example. We're going to go and try and flank this T-25. Good shot into the turret. Now we're going to harass this Chi Nu Kai. Luckily, he's not paying attention to us, and we get some nice soft shots into the back of his tank. It's just taking us so long to kill him, and it has to be the Su-85. For all of those shots that we put into him, we did 178 damage there. Try and take some shots of this AMX-38. We're just going to fast forward this bit. And now this is where the KV-1 is going to come. He puts one shot into us. Let's just take a look at his health right now. He's on 24% of his health. Just how many times do I have to shoot this guy? And for how long to be able to take him out? And even though he started on quite low hit points, and we were putting APCR rounds into his lower plate, it's just not enough. And so it comes back to the original discussion about the DPM of this tank, the aim time, the gun handling, the accuracy, because it certainly doesn't have the mobility to be able to run rings around its opponents like quite a few other medium tanks do at this tier. Generally, tanks with really bad DPM have very high alpha damage, which allows them to store up, in a way, DPM to be able to unload it initially in the combat. However, the Sentinel has the lowest of this attribute, if you want to call it that, and it doesn't make up for this disadvantage in rate of fire, nor the gun handling or the accuracy. And this would be forgiven if maybe the tank was fast or it had a ridiculous armor, but it just frankly doesn't. This tank is so unbelievably generic and just has no special attributes as it stands now. Personally, I love playing British medium tanks. I've racked up hundreds and hundreds of games in my Cromwell, hundreds of games in my Comet. Even I enjoy the Centurion Action 10 as it stands now. I even deal with the FE4 202P before it was buffed because I wanted to crew train my tanks. But one thing's for certain is that I am not going to put the dishonor on my Comet crew of putting them into this Sentinel, past probably getting my first ace tanker in this machine. As it currently stands, I think it's very generic, boring, and probably one of the weakest tier 4 medium tanks in the game, and I think that you would do far better in trying to hold out to pick up maybe a Cromwell Berlin, or investing your money elsewhere in something that might provide you a little bit more joy than I think the Sentinel will. But who knows, maybe Wargaming will watch this video and hopefully give it some love, because frankly if it goes into the game like this, it's going to be one of my most tasty favorite snacks to be able to hunt down when I play my low tier tanks. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, or maybe it was just useful to you, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Sentinel. Do you think that I'm being too hard on it? Do you think that I'm being about fair on it? Let me know what you guys think. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.